400 feet beneath the surface of a freezing sea, deep inside waters the Soviet Union believed no enemy could ever reach, a small team of American divers knelt on the ocean floor in almost total darkness. They were not there to plant a bomb. They were there to wrap a 20-foot-long device around a Soviet military cable, a cable carrying the most secret communications of the entire Soviet Pacific Fleet. If they were caught, there would be no rescue. They were more than 100 miles inside enemy territory, beneath a sea the Soviets guarded like a private lake. And for the next 10 years, that single device would let the United States listen to the Soviet Union's most guarded secrets in real time, while the Soviets never suspected a thing. This is the story of Operation Ivy Bells, one of the most audacious intelligence operations in American history, a decade-long campaign fought silently on the floor of the ocean, and the single act of betrayal by one desperate man that finally brought it all to an end. It began with a hunch. In the early 1970s, a United States naval intelligence officer named James Bradley became convinced that somewhere on the floor of the Sea of Okhotsk, off the eastern coast of the Soviet Union, ran a secret undersea cable. That cable, he believed, connected a major Soviet nuclear submarine base on the Kamchatka Peninsula to the fleet's headquarters on the mainland, and it would be carrying priceless military communications. There was just one problem. The Sea of Okhotsk was Soviet territorial water, completely off-limits to foreign ships, and ringed with underwater microphones designed to catch any intruder. To even go looking for that cable, America would have to send a submarine into some of the most dangerous water on Earth. Bradley had one clever idea about how to find it. He remembered the signs from his childhood along the Mississippi River, the ones that warned boats not to drop anchor where cables lay below. He gambled that the Soviets would post the very same kind of warning. So, in October of 1971, a specially modified submarine, the USS Halibut, slipped into the Sea of Okhotsk and began quietly scanning the coastline. And there they were, signs along the shore warning ships not to anchor. Bradley had been right. If the Halibut were ever detected this deep inside Soviet waters, it could be seized or sunk, and the act alone might be enough to start a war. But they had found the trail to the cable. What came next was almost beyond belief for its time. Saturation divers, breathing a special mixture of gases and kept alive by warm water pumped into their suits through an umbilical line, left the submarine and walked to the freezing seabed nearly 400 feet down until they found it, a Soviet communications cable about 5 inches thick. They could not cut it, and they could not pierce it without giving themselves away. So, American engineers had built something extraordinary. A 20-foot-long recording device that simply wrapped around the cable and captured the signals passing through it, without ever touching the wires inside. It was designed so cleverly that if the Soviets ever raised the cable for repair, the device would quietly fall away to the bottom, leaving no trace. The mission was so secret that most of the sailors aboard the submarine had no idea what their own divers were doing down in the dark. Every few weeks, American submarines made the dangerous return journey to swap out the tapes and carry them home. And what those tapes contained stunned the analysts at the National Security Agency. The Soviets, so certain that no one could ever reach this cable, had barely bothered to encrypt what crossed it. The Americans were suddenly listening to the inner workings of the Soviet Pacific Fleet. Submarine movements, missile testing, nuclear plans, even ordinary sailors calling home to their families. Some of what they heard fed directly into the nuclear arms talks between Washington and Moscow, giving American negotiators a quiet glimpse of what the Soviets could truly do. It was one of the greatest intelligence windfalls of the entire Cold War. The operation worked so well that the Navy built an even more advanced TAP, powered by a small nuclear reactor that could store a full year of recordings on its own. For nearly 10 years, Operation Ivy Bells ran flawlessly. The Soviets never suspected a thing. In the end, it was not Soviet technology that defeated the Americans. It was a single man, thousands of miles away, who was quietly drowning in debt. His name was Ronald Pelton, and he had spent 14 years inside the National Security Agency, where he had learned the secret of the undersea tap. But by 1980, Pelton's life had fallen apart. He was tens of thousands of dollars in debt, and he had just declared bankruptcy. So, in January of that year, he walked into the Soviet embassy in Washington and offered to sell what was inside his head. He never carried out a single document. His memory was good enough that he didn't need to. He was paid roughly $35,000 by the Soviets over the next few years, and for the single greatest secret, the undersea tap, they reportedly handed him just $5,000. At first, the Soviets did nothing. But in 1981, American spy satellites caught something chilling. A group of Soviet ships, including a salvage vessel, anchored directly over the exact spot where the tap lay hidden. A submarine, the USS Halibut, was rushed to the site. When its divers finally reached the seabed, the device was gone. The Soviets had pulled it up from the ocean floor. The Americans were stunned, and for years they had no idea how their impossible secret had ever been discovered. The answer finally came in 1985, when a senior KGB officer named Vitaly Yurchenko defected to the United States and revealed that Ronald Pelton had been selling secrets all along. Pelton was arrested, convicted of espionage, and sent to prison for decades. As for the tap itself, the Soviets put it on display in a museum in Moscow, where it can still be seen today, an American machine that once listened to a superpower's every word. Operation Ivy Bells had lasted 10 years, gathered some of the most valuable intelligence of the entire Cold War, and was undone in the end not by an enemy fleet, but by one man and a fistful of cash. The Soviet Union had built a sea they believed no enemy could ever enter. They never imagined the enemy was already there, lying in the dark on the ocean floor, listening to every word.